see on the screen you have some kind of a drama component.
It's called Stories of Hope. Stories of Hope is a dramatic presentation, 45-minute presentation of women's life before prison, during prison, and after prison. It's not my story necessarily. However, it's a compilation of women's stories that was just like mine. And it's very powerful. And we use that as a piece to educate the public with.
All the women who perform in the stories are former prisoners, addicts. There's one woman in there, one little girl who does the child's part. Her dad was in prison. And they sing and dance, and they've got their lines memorized. And yeah, it's a powerful way to touch people, because you can't argue with the story. You can argue with people on principles, but you can't argue with the story.
What kind of things do you do with the kids to help them understand and help them bond with their parents?
I hang out with the kids every Tuesday night. The kids that we deal with are kids that have a lot of challenge. That's why we have gotten the therapist who is working with some of the families for the kids. And I don't want to categorize them in boxes, but just to generalize, most of them are academically behind as far as schoolwork is concerned. So we are providing tutors on Tuesday nights for some of the kids. Many of them have difficulty interacting with each other in ways that aren't aggressive and assertive. And so again, the therapist that we have working with the families is really working with them on those issues. She has a group session that she meets with a small group of the kids on Tuesday nights so that they can learn to work in a group. But it's a challenge. What I find works is a lot of patience, setting boundaries, letting them know that that you're there no matter what. Whenever we have to discipline a kid, I will always pull them aside. We had 2 kids the other night that I had to raise my voice. I use my old principal voice, okay? And I pulled them aside, and they were running around in the computer room. Well, that's not what you do in the computer room, okay? So I pulled them aside. And then I got that little boy later, and I said to him when I pulled him aside, I said, I want you to tell me why I made you come out of there. To get them to do that was, it took almost 10 minutes before he could say he was running around. He said, well, I said, no, don't tell me about her. What about you? Well, but it's a lot of, it's what you do with any kids. It's that kind of thing. We have games and activities, a lot of Play-Doh, that sort of thing. The Ladies of Charity from St. Catherine Labouré Parish come the second Tuesday of every month, and they bring us snacks and food, and we love them. But they also bring a lot of women, and they work with the kids. So on that night, the kids get a lot of individual attention.
And we have had a couple of kids that grew up in the Let's Start process, that's in college, they graduate St. Louis U, that their mother was in prison. So,
and she comes back and helps in the computer room every once in a while. So it's like that. That's the whole thing again. The people who've been there reach out to those behind. And that's the kind of help that we get. But the group that we did at that school district in University City, we had one-on-one with those kids. I was there, but we had a person who had lived the experience paired with every kid, and that made a huge difference.
I know you said just now you had a therapist that would come work with them, and then you said also you have like professional counseling. Are those donated services?
No. We have one person who's doing donated services as counseling. Okay, and she sees maybe 4 women on a regular basis. The therapist that we have, we're paying her. We got a grant to pay her. She's fortunately reducing her rate a little bit because therapy is expensive. But we've gotten a grant through the Lutheran Foundation for that particular purpose. Yeah, it's like no matter what you do, you're constantly hustling for money. Constantly. It never stops.
Do you have any preventing actions?
Any
Prevention actions.
prevention?
To prevent,
Like to prevent people from going into prison?
yes, like prevent people for going into drugs and things like
Okay,
that.
what we look upon as prevention is working with the kids. It's to break the cycle of incarceration. And working with the kids is the direct way, but supporting the women so that they make better choices with their kids is also an indirect way of doing that. We've gotten breakout sessions from the group, parenting, like you tell them, Cynthia.
But
Parenting.
oh yeah, I'm in a 12. We got a 12-step parenting group in that store. We have micro-lending groups. We have quite a few groups, and I'm a part of that. 12, every time we have it, I'm a part of it because I'm dealing with adult children that's already, who they are. However, that helps a lot. Just talking about things that we probably would never talk about. Instead of focusing in on, little so-and-so is just bad, behavior is bad, we have to take the responsibility. It teaches us to take responsibility for the part that we played in their life for them to get to that point as to where they are. And that's not always easy, but through that 12-step process, it helps us get rid of the shame and the guilt. I know for me, it helps me to deal with my adult children.
And actually,
I was just going to ask, just to go back, because twice you mentioned micro-lending, just in passing, but could you just talk a little bit about the micro-lending?
We have a financial literacy class that we take and kind of learn how to budget, and it helps us to get our credit online and stuff like that. Then once we complete the financial literacy class, we had a micro-lending where we could borrow money. At first it started out micro-lending to borrow money to get small businesses, which some of the women got money to, make bracelets, bake cakes, sell them, whatever it took. However, we found out some of the women got the money to use just to pay a bill. So instead of giving it to them for businesses, they're able to come now and say, I'd like to borrow this amount of money so I can do whatever they need to do. And once they pay it back, it leaves room for the next person that go through that process to borrow money.
and we have a committee that decides who gets the money, and there are Let's Start participants on that committee. So again, it's they're deciding for each other.
Thank you, that's one.
So I can imagine the impact you're having in others. It's just,
I hope so.
it's always.
I took so much from society. I couldn't give back. I shoplift by way of supporting my drug habit. I don't know where the stuff is that I shoplift. So this is my way of allowing God to use me to give back to some of his other women and his children. Because me and my children went through a lot. We really did. I'd be glad we have a 12-step conference up there. Narcotics Not.